Hi everyone, welcome to Coaches on the Couch. I'm Rachel Birchmore, and just before Louise Rogers, my co-host, joins us, just a quick introduction for those who are listening for the very first time. We're now in around season 5, I think, of this series, which we started back in 2020, and we explore leadership in the built environment. It's not our day job. Louise and I are leadership coaches, and we work with architects, engineers, and other consultants across the sector. And that's in a variety of formats. So bespoke leadership programs, workshops, and one-to-one coaching for existing and future leaders. And find out more about that at stepuplondon.com. And today is the first of a couple of episodes we've planned with founders who are choosing now to step away or down from their organisations or the organisations that they co-founded. And Louise and I have both worked with people who are planning for succession or changing roles, sometimes feeling stuck and considering what might be next. So we thought that these conversations might be useful to others in those sorts of positions. So the first conversation today is with somebody who's actually been on the podcast before, and that's Christophe Egret, who founded Studio Egret West with David West back in 2004. So let's jump into that conversation now. Hope you enjoy it.
Hi everyone, welcome back to Coaches on the Couch. I'm Louise.
And I'm Rachel.
And today we're joined on our virtual couch by Christophe Egret, who is a friend of this podcast and was one of our early guests back in 2021, when he was one half with David West and a founder and director team of Studio Egret West. But in October, Christophe closed that phase of his life and started a new one, and we're delighted that he's joined us today to talk more about that. And because of this, we feel that it's more appropriate that Christophe introduces himself in a minute or so. So we're going to ask him to do that. But first of all, we need to chat couches. So Christophe, please tell us something brief and interesting about your couch.
When we designed Park Hill, there was somebody had made a beautiful sofa is more like an armchair, bright yellow, with big ears on it, and I fell in love with it. And it's quite beautiful because it can unfold so that it can be a chaise longue, or it can fold underneath and then become the proper armchair. And it's just a lovely place to read a book and feel comfortable and feel cozy. And it's a bright yellow spark of light in the living room.
We know that yellow is one of your colours, Christophe. So look forward to seeing a photograph of that.
Yeah,
sunshine when the sky is grey.
Sounds beautiful. And there's a little bit of sun just coming through the window this morning as we record, so that's appropriate. So thanks for that. And as Louise said before, we felt it was appropriate today because it's kind of connected to the theme that we're talking about, for you to introduce yourself. So after so many years of perhaps telling people that you were part of Studio Egret West, how do you introduce yourself now?
I don't know yet. I'm holding. I mean, I say I'm Christophe Egret. I leave it to that. I've decided that I'm going to hold back from defining what I'm doing next. But if people want to know something about my past, I will say that I've been working for 40 years. And the last 20 years have been absolutely magical in the creation with David West of Studio Egret West. Literally, the 5th of November was the 20th anniversary. And I guess the most memorable thing is that we decided all these years ago that architecture, urban design, and landscape should be united. And there shouldn't be really boundaries between them. And very, very often we talk about how we bring together the strategy of urban design and the specificity and the rootedness of architecture. And that the glue that holds all this together is landscape public realm, the space between buildings.
Yeah, and you've done that with a huge amount of success. And in fact, this morning, I think I saw that there's some public consultation now going on at the wonderful Mayfield project in Manchester about new housing there, which I know that you're really familiar with. And one of the things we wanted to talk to you about, Christophe, well, the main thing we wanted to talk to you about is we know you as somebody who's really passionate about the built environment and the spaces between buildings. As you say, 20 wonderful years heading up with David West, Studio Egret West. And we wanted to ask you and share with us as much as you feel able to share with us about the thought process that you went through when you decided that now was the right time to take a step away from being directly involved with the practice.
Well, I think, in fairness, until very recently, like until a few months ago, I thought I would work at Studio Egret West till my 70s or 80s and keep going. And I guess kind of two thoughts came through my mind, but probably the strongest one is that maybe at 65, I'm 65, and I left on the day of my 65th birthday. You feel like you still have 10, 15, 20 years in front of you with a fair wind, and maybe you can do something else. So it's a kind of little bit of selfish thing that why do you have to keep on doing what you've been doing for the last 20 years? So that was a kind of surprise to me, because I thought, I'll stay at Studio Egret West. And I guess the main reason that triggered that is that I feel that the studio is in a really strong position. It knows its identity. It knows its direction. The talent is there. And in a way, strange thing to say, but maybe my presence actually was hindering a further blossoming of the talent in the studio. And so by stepping down, I'm actually letting a little bit of oxygen to let the hierarchy of the studio and the dynamics of the studio to kind of develop in a different way, to get a new energy. And I know that there are some people who are going to do wonderful things that they might not have done. And, the other thing, if we are always talking about what will happen next, I have this idea that Studio Egret West will possibly keep on going, and it will change and it will evolve. But in 15 years' time, then David's 15 years younger and Lucas is 15 years younger than me. So they have still the fire in the belly, and they, still happy to fight every day. Not that I'm not, but you know what I mean. And they, in 15 years' time, they will decide to step down, I assume. So we have to kind of prepare the next generation, and on the basis of transdisciplinary qualities that the studio has developed and is going to continue to develop with, I hope, interior design, branding, and other things that, the design profession has to kind of regroup. And because, once upon a time, the architect did the costing, the structure, the design, the client interaction, the contract, and the supervision. And then they've kind of lost all that. And so they need to regain another status. And I think that the transdisciplinary quality is where that should be.
So interesting, Christophe. The way you've described it as this very sort of selfless act of stepping away to enable more energy within a practice who are trying to do that not regrouping, but to take their position as the design industry regroups. And I'm wondering, in your LinkedIn post, which was beautifully powerful and really nicely written on, I think probably on the day you stepped away. And at the end of there, you said, I asked myself why, and perhaps I could let go. And I'm interested in your position there with the sort of perhaps I could let go and what that letting go means from your point of view.
Well, I think that when you run a practice of now nearly 85 people, you get very attached to weird things where you sit during the day, the sketches that you do, the way that you might direct a thought, the questioning and so on. So, I've lived a ecosystem that I've really enjoyed and that we've collectively nurtured for a long time. And a lot of people say when they come into the studio, there is a nice vibe, and that's kind of precious. And it's been carefully crafted in many ways to make sure that people get on with each other and spark each other off. So I think it's letting go of that and letting go of clients that we've enjoyed or that I've enjoyed, letting go of one routine and finding a new routine. And I feel like I'm between two routines. I had a really good routine for 20 years, and now I'm a little bit lost in space. And come another couple of months, and I'll be back. I'll have found a new routine. I don't know if I meant any more than that in letting go. I might have done, but I'm not sure.
No, I mean, that really, we're of an age, Christophe. So everything that you're saying resonates with me. And I have to give a little shout out to a guy called Harvey Belovsky, who on Substack has a blog called Leave Well, Live Better. And he's a retired rabbi. And he talks beautifully, as you have just done, about that letting go and about how that sometimes and should and does enable new things to come in, because until we do the letting go, there's no space, is there? So we let go and we create space and new things come in. And he did write something that I read this morning about buyer's regret being something that holds people back from making the decision that you've made, because they're worried about regretting it. And how sad it is, really, that people are worried about so much about regretting something that it kind of paralyzes them from making a decision. And I can see you're nodding that.
Yes, but I'm not coming back. I knew there was something else about letting go that I hadn't expressed properly, which is that it's so easy when you leave something to immediately fill the void with something else. Or I'll paint, or I'll be a consultant, or I'll teach, or I'll write a book. And letting go means also for me to just not fill that void for a while, and listen. And so I guess there is I use that word carefully. There's a spiritual dimension to it, which is that this idea that maybe something will come along that will mean that I feel like that's what I have to dedicate time to. And I know that in many ways, even the studio is kind of moving towards that soulful quality that is, the step beyond just dealing with the material pragmatics of construction and building and so on. How do you make better places where social cohesion and well-being and good orientation and good sustainability kind of move together harmoniously? And maybe by stepping down, I give myself a bit more freedom in that direction.
It's so interesting, isn't it? In a world where that's so heavily programmed towards sort of productivity, this word productivity comes up, which I think pushes people into filling voids every time they change, or even in conversation, filling silences, or, that there's no punctuation to anything anymore. Everything just is fluid.
And we rush everywhere, yes. So that's what I mean by letting go, that avoiding to, I feel very privileged. I'm going to Senegal in a day's time and spending there 4 weeks. So this is the time when I will use to kind of reboot my brain and kind of get a sense of the feelings that I need to address to step forward to something else.
I'm sure you'll have an absolutely amazing experience, as you say, somewhere so different. Because, I suppose part of the role that you've had, that you've moved out of, is there's such a strong sense of community within the built environment sector, isn't there? That you feel very much part. And I'm not suggesting for 1 minute that you won't still be part of that community, but your role within that will be different. So it's not just your role at Egret West; it's your role in the whole industry.
That's immediately what I miss or will miss the most, and probably will try and rekindle in some different form. What I haven't resolved yet is how I will keep in contact with the studio. And in a way, it's kind of that we haven't made any plans. So I'm kind of dancing with the studio in the sense that I will remain on the EOT board for 2 more years. And maybe longer. So I'm keeping a connection in that way.
Yes.
And then we shall see whether the studio feels like it's completely happy to be independent, or whether it wants to invite me to a crit. But I think that's quite interesting. We haven't even made a decision about how I will continue to interact, or whether I will continue to interact with the studio. I suspect I will, but I don't know what shape it'll take. But that brings me to another reason why I felt this was the right time to step down, which was that the EOT, the Employer Ownership Trust, is 4 years old. And, one thinks that the EOT becomes an EOT the minute it's established, but it actually takes a number of years for people to understand what their new roles and the new expectation of their purpose is within an EOT. They need to step up in taking initiative, to share their passions, to find new clients and all of that. So 4 years is, I would say, we're now starting to see a real coalition of effort that is taking shape and is structured. And I find that's good. So now, 4 years of EOT means that people are ready to step up.
I'm curious around identity and how these sort of different parts of identity, as a founder, as an architect, the role in the industry, all of the other parts of yourself, and how you see that with a transition like this.
Yes, I mean, I guess you're touching on the issue of purpose and relevancy. I guess that if I was worried about one thing, it would be like, oh, maybe I'll become irrelevant, or I'll become without purpose, and probably a fleeting thought. But I did feel like I was part of a community of clients, designers, planners, and all of that. And there's a kind of invisible conversation that takes place. And what I've been doing, in the last month since I stepped down, was to meet as many people as possible, to just not to structure a new future, but to just talk and to share experience. And now that I have the time, I don't have an excuse of, I have another meeting to go to or something like that. I'm actually able to have 2-3 hour meetings with people and have conversation that I probably missed. So time is a great advantage, and a lot of the people that I've met over the last 20, 30, 40 years are now around my age, and they kind of have parallel thoughts about how to transition to the next part of their lives. And So I do a lot of that, and a bit of lunch and a bit of dinner, and then you put on too much weight because you're timing too much. Then you have to do a bit more sport.
How lovely to have, as you say, that sort of more leisurely conversations, the ones that aren't driven by the need for a definite output or result, but can just kind of softly explore the kind of liminal space that you're in and see how other people are feeling about that. I love that idea. I do a fair amount of that myself and could always do more, Christophe, so we should have lunch. I was curious about what have you learned about yourself that you can share with us over the last 2 or 3 months?
I don't know if I've learned anything that is so groundbreaking that I have to share it, but what I've appreciated is, when I was in work mode at Studio Egret West, it was next thing, the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. And so you don't quite finish the thing that you're doing. And so what I've discovered and really enjoy at the moment is, okay, I'm reading this book and I'm going to read it for 4 hours or 2 hours, whatever. And then I'm going to meet somebody and I'm going to, and I don't have to leave them until the conversation has finished. And so you just allow things to finish rather than, already thinking about the next thing. And therefore it allows you to be a little bit more present, a little bit more in the moment, and having one of the reasons I wanted to step down is to regain that precious time, that time of, in the morning, I want to do some exercise. I want to have a moment to paint. I want to finish that book, that article, that podcast. And I guess that the other thing I want to do is learn new things. And they might be physical skills, or they might be philosophical thoughts, but to have the time to breathe back this knowledge and to have a few hours every day to dedicate to that new knowledge is very attractive.
I love the expression breathe back that knowledge. And as you said, you're going to Senegal tomorrow. So clearly, this is a big trip. It's a month. It's going to be culturally, linguistically, not quite so different. But as we were talking before we started recording, probably a little bit different. Your French may have to reattune itself slightly. I'm interested in the decision to immerse yourself in something so different. And is that linked to your decision to step away? Maybe that's, I think we're running out of time with you, so it may be our last question. The decision to go somewhere so completely different for a month, was that linked to your decision to?
Well, I haven't taken 4 weeks holiday for 40 years. So there is something, to be able to unwind for 4 weeks is, I can hardly remember it. The choice of Senegal is, I feel that it's a society that is at a different stage and it has different background. I'm particularly interested in Casamance and the south of Senegal, where there's still an animist kind of way of thinking, where the river and the forest have souls. And I'm quite intrigued by how we can bring this back to our materialist kind of world, and how we can think about squares and bridges and buildings having a soul. And it can sound a little bit woo-woo, but I don't think it is.
I love the woo-woo. Always. And the thought that we can, it's not the first time you've spoken about creating places with soul and with heart. That's, it's core to what Studio Egret West has always believed, I think, in the way that you've approached your work.
It is. But there is soul, and there is soul. There is soul, like social cohesion soul, and working with artists and so on. But there's a soul that is more intangible, more spiritual, more, and I do feel that if our population is going to live mainly in urban environments, the city needs to regroup and find those qualities so that we can all enjoy it.
And the spirituality in the day-to-day.
Yeah. And, if you had asked me 10 years ago to talk about spirit, I would have said no-go area. And I feel like now is the time for the architectural profession to start to talk about it. Like, why not? So Cineball has a kind of, I don't know, I'm making assumptions here, but I'm imagining that the music, the dancing, the film, the literature is all of a different kind of quality, and that's what I want to experience, and for it to be sufficiently different from my UK experience to trigger certain kind of realizations and see where it leads me.
Different ways of seeing the world.
Yeah,
exactly.
Which takes us back to the book that you're reading or about to read.
The White Bone.
Yes.
Which is a story about elephants, but written from the mind of an elephant rather than a human. So a different take on interpretation of our cosmos.
And on that note, different interpretation of our cosmos, I believe we should come to an end. So thanks so much, Christophe, for sharing where you are on your journey. There must be so many people out there thinking about similar sorts of transitions, and I think that's possibly helpful to people. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. It was a beautiful conversation, and have a fantastic trip.
Thank you. And Thank you for inviting me to talk about it.
Thanks.
See you soon.